Hi, everybody. Brian Norcross here on the first day of hurricane season 2026 in the Eastern Pacific. Now, you might say, wait a minute, I thought hurricane season started on June 1st. Indeed, it does in the Atlantic and the Central Pacific south of Hawaii, but in the Eastern Pacific off the coast of Mexico, hurricane season actually starts today. And you might say, well, why would that be? Well, here's the story. Take a look. It turns out that the upper level winds become more conducive sooner in that part of the earth than they do over the Atlantic. And over the Atlantic, we still get big dips in the jet stream coming down, creating hostile upper level winds over the tropics. But just on average, that tends to let up sooner in the Eastern Pacific Ocean off the coast of Mexico there, between Mexico and southeast of Hawaii. So that's reason number one. Reason number two is the ocean water just warms up sooner. In the Atlantic and the Gulf and the Caribbean, we still get cold fronts moving south caused by those big dips in the jet stream. We also tend to have stronger winds over the Atlantic and the waters there and churning up things for longer into the season, so things stay cooler there. But in the Eastern Pacific, off the coast of Mexico, very, very warm water early. And if we get a disturbance that starts in Africa and then moves across the Atlantic way far south, and then it comes across here, it gets over this very warm pool of water, and indeed it can develop easily in May. And the season tends to taper off sooner. So the whole thing shifts earlier in the Eastern Pacific. As we know, in the Atlantic, we can go well into November sometimes, but certainly almost always into October. And here's the evidence. Look at this. Going back to 1950, the Eastern Pacific has cranked out 25 tropical storms and 19 hurricanes. There you see them there. So this is not nothing. This is in May. Just in May, you get all these storms there over the years. So this is why the season begins earlier. And look at this. 4 of them have been Category 3 and above hurricanes, even Category 4 hurricanes out in here. So anyway, Mother Nature just kicks in sooner on that side of Mexico. Generally, they kind of head out to sea this time of year, but never 100% sure about that. So that's the look at the water temperature this year. Now, we were looking at history there. This year, we have this extremely warm pool of water from south of Cabo San Lucas up to Southern California and out to Hawaii. And this is not the temperature of the water. This is the difference from average. So the water there is still reasonably cool, but it's just way above normal. So as we go into the summer and the whole ocean warms up, if this pattern continues, we're going to have exceptionally warm water pushing up even into the Southern California area, exceptionally warm for them. But the big thing I think that will come out of that from a weather standpoint is when we get flow coming in like this up into the southwest in California and the desert southwest, and even up into the higher elevations, that's going to be much more moist than normal because the warmer air just has more moisture, and that will come into the desert southwest. And sometimes in El Nino years, and this has nothing to do with El Nino, by the way, but in El Nino years, which we'll talk about in a second, you end up with heavy rain in California. So anyway, we're just going to be aware of a different kind of a climate pattern that could affect the desert southwest this year that is unrelated completely to El Nino, just that very, very warm pool of water there. When we look at the actual water temperatures, you can see there's a line here. Below it, they're exceptionally warm, as I said. To the north, they're not tropically warm. They're just unusually warm for this time of year. And we're going to watch this kind of dividing line here migrate north as we go into the summer and we get a bigger area with temperatures conducive for hurricanes. And yes, indeed, in Hawaii, Hawaii has been battered by the Kona lows this year. They're going to be, just looking at odds, more likely to have some kind of tropical system there just because the water will be unusually warm to the south of Hawaii and supportive of a storm. A strong storm in Hawaii almost always comes like this and then north. some kind of track like that, like Aniki, for example, or Iwa, or the historic hurricanes. Not many of them, but occasionally that indeed does happen. All right, now let's talk about El Nino. All that other stuff has nothing to do with El Nino. It just was this cold, very warm pool of water up here. The El Nino issue is in this box, and what science has proven over the years, a lot of research about this, is that when that box gets unusually warm, the water in that box south of Hawaii gets unusually warm, that affects the weather patterns all over the world. And some areas go into drought, some areas get excess rain, and so forth and so on. So we're watching what the water temperature is going to be in that box. You sometimes hear it called the 3.4 box. There are 4 zones out there, and this one bridges the 3 zone and the 4 zone, so they call it 3.4. But in any case, that's where we're going to look for water temperatures. So what do the computer models say? Well, they all say we're going to get above average water temperatures there. The question is, how much above average? So you have all these different models, and you see that every one of them has an El Nino forming, El Nino being more than half a degree above normal. But if you get up to this 2 degrees above normal, that's what is colloquially called a super El Nino. Technically, it's called a very strong El Nino. That's just not as sexy a word. But in any case, that has a bigger effect on the weather patterns. And the big effect as far as the hurricane audience is concerned is it tends to squash storms in the Atlantic, because you have all this extra energy going up into the atmosphere from the Pacific, and it kind of comes down in the Atlantic, and when it comes down, it has this kind of squashing effect on storms. So fewer storms and not as many strong storms is generally what happens. And then all kinds of other things happen, which you'll hear about through this season if we get a very strong El Nino in terms of just affecting the day-to-day weather all around the world. So we're waiting to see exactly how it develops. It's right in the neutral range right now, and then we'll see as we go forward here in time. But the idea is that as we get into hurricane season in July and August, that we have a pretty strong El Nino. That's the thinking. So the scientists and the agencies all around the world, universities, governments, all kinds of people, modeling agencies, take the average of what all of them are forecasting for the hurricane season, and this is what we get. 13 named storms, 6 hurricanes, 2 Category 3, and above you can see at or just below the averages over the 30 years. That's kind of the official average for a hurricane season. We haven't had really average, something that felt average anyway, in quite some time, but indeed it does happen. We haven't had this kind of a situation with an El Nino, this strong one, like is forecast, along with ocean temperatures in the Atlantic that are not very warm. They're more like average. So 2023, we had a strong El Nino, but we had a super warm Atlantic that made the storms go in spite of the El Nino. This year, we don't have that combination. So this is a more unusual combination. And almost always when we get this combination, we get fewer net storms. All right, there's one more thing I want to show you on the other side of the Pacific. And look at this. First of all, this is the Google AI model output, okay? And you say, wait a minute, I don't see anything there. Yeah, hold on just a second. I want you to watch the date up there. Okay, it's today, right? It's the 15th of May. Okay, and so we're going to go forward in time here through next week. There we are. It's a week from today. Still nothing there. All right, now let's go a little farther in time and look at this. So here we are now, all the way next weekend. Remember, a cone is normally 5 days out. So now we're 8 or 9 days out, and the new Google AI model is showing the track of a storm in this area here into the Philippines. Now, this has nothing to do with how strong it is or anything like that. It's just a track of a developed tropical cyclone, it's called, or a tropical depression or tropical storm going into the Philippines. Now, this is all the way next weekend, way out in the future. And look, it shows at that time another one starting to develop here. Now we're going to go into the following week. And we see that that first one goes across the Philippines, kind of dies out here in the South China Sea, and that second one kind of went up in here. So anyway, this is just a preview of the new incredible technology that's coming out of Google DeepMind, but it's also being done by the US. The US GFS AI model will be out this year, as well as the European AI model that was out last year. And then there are improvements to all of them. And then we're going to combine them all and hopefully make even better forecasts by taking this consensus of all those models and all this new information that AI is providing us. That's it's really incredible that goes out so far in time. Exactly how far out should we credibly forecast storms is a very, very good question, and we'll be all going through this new technology together as we get the hurricane season underway in the Atlantic here in just about 2 weeks. All right, that's it for today, and thankfully everything is quiet across the board here. Of course, we'll stay on top of it on Fox Weather. If you don't know how to watch Fox Weather, then what you do is you go to foxweather.tv, and it'll tell you how to get it on your phone, your tablet, your computer, your TV, if you have a Roku or you have an Amazon Fire or you have an Apple TV or a Samsung or an LG or whatever you have. We're streaming on that device as the full-time free weather channel for you to watch at any time and anywhere. So, of course, we'll be on top of all that this hurricane season. And right here, wherever you're watching me, whatever device you're using right now, of course, we'll keep you up to date here as well. So that's it for today. Have a good day and see you here soon.